Howdy, 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 and welcome to the Red Dirt Aggie Show. I'm Brian, aka the Red Dirt Aggie, and I'm here with our very special guest, Brandon Rhyder.
Hello.
Well, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself a little bit? Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Brandon Rhyder. I am a singer-songwriter that I was born and raised in Carthage, Texas, way over there on the Texas-Louisiana line, and then I graduated high school and found the guitar in college, and I went on to finish my degree at the University of Texas at Tyler in industrial technology. And then about a year after I got that, I decided that I wanted to chase music. So that's what I've been doing ever since the late 90s. And it's been a whirlwind. I hope that's an introduction.
Oh, well, yeah, man, that sounds like a good introduction to me. But sounds like, you made something of it, to be able to make a living doing something like that for as long as you have, that's impressive in and of itself. And I think that points to your success. So.
Well, I think that music is one of those things that you don't get into because you want to be wealthy. I think that there has to be a passion there that is unbridled and that you are willing to chase on whatever level and that you can to get where you want to go. And then through the years, life changes too, and your goals are different. And for me, I probably wouldn't even be chasing music if it hadn't been for a great friend of mine that I met. He actually built the first house that my wife and I, Kelly, bought. It was it wasn't a custom build. It was something. It was a brand new company of his. His name was Ricky Casey. He's no longer with us, but he was the guy that pulled me to the side in '98 after I had been playing for not a very long time and started writing songs very quickly. And he's the guy that pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, man, maybe you should think about doing something with this." And that was honestly the first time that I ever thought, maybe it was something that I would be interested in. So you never know what path life is going to give you. At that point, my wife and I had both were graduated from college. We got married young. We were high school sweethearts. We kind of put each other through college. And then had bought that first house. We were living on Lake Palestine, south of Tyler, and both had great jobs, what I would call 30-year jobs back then.
Right.
And, music just kept becoming, and quickly, a bigger part of my life. And so, when the door opened and it was suggested, I decided, let's do it.
Yeah, and you made that full commitment to it, right? Like.
Yeah. Well, that full commitment came with a commitment from my wife as well, which is even more hard to understand, because what happened was I put this little band together and we were garage worthy, and we practiced a lot out at my buddy's ranch and in his shop, and we were getting better and better. Quick story, my bass player at the time, his name is Keith Pivito. Keith, his mom helped get us on a show in Austin, Texas, at Pease Park, playing a show for a group of orthodontists who are flying in from all over the country for a convention. And that night, we started to play the show. It was in a Peace Park, which is out in the wide open, and it started pouring rain like third song in. So the gig was done. The gig was over, so we got all of our equipment back into the back of the U-Haul, and my bass player again came through. His dad happened to know someone up at the Water Tank in Northwest Austin, a local bar, and they said, "Hey, if you want to come up and play a few songs, we'll let y'all on stage." And so we did, and when we got through with that, they had put us up downtown Austin in the high-rise over 5th Street, and we ordered a bunch of pizza and we brought a bunch of beer up there, and there, it was all of us guys and our wives, and I looked at my wife and I said, "I want to move to Austin and I want to play music." And she said, "Okay." And that next week, I had a for sale sign in the yard, and 3 months later, we made the move.
Well, that's awesome, man. And to have your wife be supportive like that of your dream, and being like, "Yeah, let's do it." that's what it's all about.
It's been tough sometimes, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's a difficult road. What is required, the amount of time that you're gone. In those early days, I remember. I would come home from work in the afternoons. Once we got to Austin, we both got jobs. We had to, and then at night, I would chase the music scene, and that would be anywhere from there to College Station to San Marcos. New Braunfels was really hot at that time. A hotbed for music. Randy Rogers and his group were out of there, and then Wade moved south down to New Braunfels, and there's been so many musicians between Austin and New Braunfels forever. But man, it really opened up the doors. We did everything that we could, from open mics to songwriters in the round to benefits to whatever show you could get for whatever money you could get, and it had to be a passion, and it definitely was.
So you play for whoever's willing to listen, and then you hope for the best.
Well, you try to build it. You try to build that foundation. And one of the cool things that we did that I thought no one else really did during that time, and I haven't seen anyone else do it since, was we made we would make trips to these different universities, and we would go to the different meetings that were happening on monthly meetings, sorority meetings type stuff. And while their meeting was going on, we would knock on the door, and we would come in, and we would introduce ourselves, and we would play 3 or 4 songs. I don't think we were ever told no, we couldn't do it, but it was quite a way to get the name out there early as we were trying to come out with records.
I've heard of people playing, those fraternity and sorority shows, but usually it's the fraternity or sorority that goes looking for the musicians. So for you to go to them and be like, "Hey, can we play music for you?" I'm sure they're going to be like, "Yeah, come on. We don't have to pay," or but.
I think that was a big part of our growth, and for a couple, 2-3 years, Antone's is one of the great blues bars known in Austin, and has been for decades and decades. And I was given the opportunity to host a songwriter night once a week on Wednesday nights, I believe it was, there at Antone's, and it worked out really good because I was able to have every songwriter that was out there. I mean, at that time I was able to get Fowler and Corey Morrow and Pat Green and Randy and all of those guys, and so I think that definitely helped us build out that Central Texas market right off the bat.
Which, in Central Texas, you've got College Station, you've got Austin, you've got, like you said, New Braunfels. I mean, there's a lot of places out there with good music coming out of there. And then,
we played College Station as often as we could. We played in the early days. We started at the Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
Which
before
is
my time.
Yeah, yeah. I knew that was what you were going to say. But the Hall of Fame, and then we definitely moved over to Harry's there for a little while. We played. It was we did a live record in 2007, and it was recorded at a couple of different venues. The first venue we did was called Daisy Dukes, and it was in College Station.
It's now, I think that it's Shiner Park now. It's changed names like several times. Is that one on the corner?
Yeah.
For the university.
Yeah, we did a live part of that live record there, and obviously we played Harry so many times I can't even count. But the Tap.
Oh yeah, the Tap's a good one too.
There's been so many different venues that we've played here, and the Aggies have always been good to us.
Yeah, they tend to show up for those for that type of music. It's a big scene up there for sure.
I think it's the one of the hubs, and when we were starting out in the Texas music scene, obviously we had people that came, the guys and girls that came before us, and you think about even back to the 70s, if you think about Willie and those guys really cranking it out, but even before that, Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, and there's so many of them that. If I just went off rambling on a list of performers. But, our time was kind of an interesting time. Pat Green had really started hitting it in about the mid-'90s. I even hired Pat to do a private party. He was playing Green Hall, and me and a buddy went down there, and we said, hey, we're trying to book you, and they invited us out. At that time, he was on a Winnebago. And, met a lot of the guys in the band that were there for years and years, like Danaher. And, those, I still say, they thought Pat hung the moon, and it was such an incredible opportunity to be a part of that scene.
Right.
But we were really kind of part of that blowing up of the scene is what I'm getting to.
Like the beginning of it, sort of.
Yeah, I don't think it was the beginning.
Yeah, you can't. It's kind of hard to pinpoint the beginning, I guess.
Yeah, but it was definitely a part of the growth. That was like a rocket, and it took off. And in the early 2000s, I was lucky to play 3 or 4 gigs a month. But then as it opened up, in 2005, 6, and thereon,
right.
As long as we wanted to. I mean, we were touring, 180 plus shows a year.
Yeah, it's half the year,
It was difficult.
But when and in between all that, you're traveling. So it's like...
Well, between there and flying back and forth to Nashville, I know that was back in the early days, that was a point of consternation. People wanted you to be attached to the Texas scene and to Texas music. And I do believe that in the early days, I felt like you had to be more of unique in your approach than maybe you have to now. But the scene was just opening up and really starting to blossom, and has opened the doors for many of us. And all of us have spent many years in Nashville, not only honing our craft, but flying back and forth, with songwriting deals. And you look at the guys now and what they're doing, like Parker, and just blowing it out of the water, and it's beautiful.
He started, just like everyone else down here, and then worked his way up to, get that deal in Nashville that he's got now. But it's just, it's great. It's been crazy to see his growth, because I watched him play, at Harry's, open for Josh Abbott, and playing for like 100 people, to now selling out the rodeo and like all these stadium shows. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, he became a rock star. I mean, no doubt about it. And for sure. But he started so young. Yeah. And he was involved from a very early age of wanting to be there, wanting to be where the music was. And he grew that over years.
Or something too, right? Wasn't he on his label or something like that?
He worked with Randy for a little bit. I don't know the whole story there, but I do know that they worked together for a while. And Parker even worked with another friend of mine, Alan, from the Georgetown area, before he got to that level. So, I mean, it's not like he just came out of nowhere and started hitting grand slams. It takes anyone a while to get there.
It's a grind for sure.
Yeah.
It's a grind at the top. But what was it initially that kind of made you want to get into being a musician, or inspired you originally in the beginning to start playing music?
I think that on the whole, there's so many of us guys and girls that get into this who have a great foundation in Jesus Christ and in our churches. And I think that's a great part of where many of us learned to sing and began to sing. And I'm no different. Was raised in the church, singing in the church. I was part of the children's hour on Sunday nights, helping there, and then I led singing in church after that. And I was always musically gifted. Always had that. Always loved to write. Always wrote what I thought were kind of songs in my head, but I didn't really have an avenue with an instrument to use to be able to deliver that. And so, through the years, through band, through choir, through, singing in public quite a bit, because I had a few friends that we sang at, all the local events that they would have, whether it be a festival or something. We were local talent that they knew they could get cheap, and and we come to it, and we did. And I think that all just kind of opened the door to getting to the point where once I found the guitar, that was the medium that I had never had. That was what tied everything together with what I was writing through those times. And so I immediately started writing songs. I'm talking, I learned 3 chords, and that's what they used to call it, 3 chords in the truth country. And so I started writing really quickly, and that was what really opened the door, because that would have been the late 90s, and then, I came out with my first record in 2001 called Because She Loves Me, then Behind the Pine Curtain in 2003, and then 2005 we went in to do this record, and we named it Conviction. And Conviction was the record that put us on the map. That was the that was really the last-ditch effort for me, because I had put out 2 records. Not that they weren't good stepping stones for us and didn't give us growth, but it wasn't the growth that we needed. In that time, I was able to meet the great Walt Wilkins, a great dear friend of mine who has been the author of a lot of hits for other artists, and
Right.
especially Pat Green has done well recording a lot of Pat's songs through the years. And so Pat and Walt and I met, and the first day we met, I knew we were going to be good friends. And he was coming off a time where he was, wanting to come back from Nashville. He had been there for 10 years. He had been writing for Curb Records, and it had some success there. But, they always say there's only so much time you can spend in Nashville before you got to come home if you're a Texan. And
right.
So he was wanting to come home, and we started doing a lot of shows together, a lot of acoustic shows throughout the Texas area. And, of course, being able to be on stage with someone like Walt, and then we also teamed up with like Susan Gibson, who wrote Wide Open Spaces, and I was just surrounded by a lot of songwriters who were older than me that I looked up to, who were kicking my ass every night on stage, because their songwriting was so much further, and still, on a lot of levels is ahead. So, Walt said, he actually told my wife Kelly, he said, I'm gonna produce Brandon's next record, and she told me that after that night. And so the next time I saw Walt, I said, so I hear you're going to produce my record? And he said, I am. And I said, let's go. And that's where Conviction came together.
Yeah.
And that was a really, really special time. But that started, a crazier time, because then I was getting publishing offers to write songs in Nashville, things that I had never dreamt that I would have the ability to do or the opportunity to do. And,
right.
That really kicked my whole career into the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes is, that one moment.
Yeah.
And it kind of, you work your butt off to get to that moment, and then when it finally happens for you, I'm sure it's a great feeling to finally get that return on your...
Well, there's so many guys and girls that are trying to
right.
get to a next level, next level, whatever that is, We've put out 10 records, 11 records over the last 20 years. We've toured all over the United States and the world, and we've been able to do some really, really cool things. I always say that music has afforded me the opportunity to experience things I would have never, ever got to experience.
Right.
It's been a blessing in so many ways, for sure. But then at the same time, when you get to that level and you're touring, 200 dates a year, and you're spending a lot of time in Nashville, and you're married, and then you start to have kids, and that changes, the whole perspective for you as well.
Right.
And, I just felt like to be gone all the time after about 2013, 2014 was just getting too much to bear.
Too much.
Yeah. It was a wild, has been a wild ride, and I love that I get to continue to do it. It's just kind of more on my terms at this point,
Yeah,
and being present for my kids and for my family.
So it kind of shifted your focus back more towards the family as they started to grow up a little bit, huh?
Well, the first few years of their life, Dusty was born in 2006. Freeze Frame Time, I wrote about Dusty.
That's one of my favorites, actually. Yeah,
thank you.
I like that one.
Well, that song, and I'll tell you a little bit about it after we get through this, but then Mahela was born in 2008, and I wrote a song called Pea Pie about her that was on a record that I did with Rodney Foster in 2008. That being gone that much, my wife was truly a single mom, so to speak. I would come in, get off the bus, wash clothes, throw clothes in a bag, go to the airport, get on an airplane in Nashville.
Right.
Stay up there 3 days, fly back home, get back on the bus. And they were beautiful, but at some point you do realize that, or I did, that I was going to miss my kids growing up. And so
right.
I say that the good part about it is that they don't remember a lot of that because they were small, and
Right.
that they remember now, and that's what's important. I'm not sure my wife necessarily agrees with that whole comment because she was the one
Right.
riding the ship by herself during that time, but very, very blessed and honored that she has, and that we've been able to do what we're doing.
Yeah, every man needs a good woman behind them. So, for sure.
I say, if the shoe had been on the other foot, I'm not sure that I could have handled it, and I mean that with every word of that. It's not easy to have someone who is being pushed and pulled all over the countryside, and in the manner that we were, and just the requirements that are there, whether it be radio interviews or today podcast or in-station interviews. We did so many of those. You did, and you were just constantly on the go. I often say that there's some of it that I don't remember, and that's just because we had our nose down and we were grinding.
So much going on that you're just, some of it's bound to slip out of there. You're just going all the time. Yeah, on the grind, man. But what would you say is your favorite part of creating music?
So I'm one of those guys that I like to roll down the highway and just think about words. Sometimes it comes to me and I'm able to just really write a song very quickly that way and kind of have the melody in my head. And then when I get to a guitar that I can, or a piano, that I can find my direction there. And usually that happens pretty quickly. But I always say this too. I've been playing the guitar for 25 years and it never ceases to amaze me that I can pick it up for 15 minutes. And I do every day. I pick the guitar up every day and play. And I learn every single day. It opens up. The guitar is an amazing instrument, and I don't think I will ever be a great guitar player. I think I'm a good rhythm guitar player. I don't play a whole lot of lead, but I'm good at putting melodies and hooks together. So that's probably my favorite aspect is when it all comes together. Songs that are written quickly are always the ones that have a positive impact the quickest. It's crazy. Like if you're able to sit down and write a song very quickly, most of the time those songs are the ones that just take off. I don't know why that is, if it's the inspiration.
Maybe because you don't overthink it too, I think.
I think
you're
so.
Just kind of like, sometimes those come from the heart maybe more because you're just getting something out of your head. And I don't know.
It does. It happens quickly, and songs that I've had over the years that have been great hits for us, including Freeze Frame and Backroads and Rock Angel and Between Here and the Front Door, Go Back In Fool, just so many of them. You Burn Me. They've all been a product of being songs that were written usually in an hour or less.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to me that those are the ones that take off so much and they come out the quickest.
I think heart and soul, like you said, is part of that. That your passion is vested in that, and then a lot of times, when we started writing and having publishing deals and flying back to Nashville and writing with writers up there, and I was blessed during that time to be able to write with a lot of great writers like Radney Foster and John Randall and Liz Rose, Lori McKenna, Walt Wilkins, of course. So many writers that really helped me hone my craft. But that was when you got into the point of where you're writing like by appointment.
Yeah.
And so that's a much different thought process. You try to come into that with ideas, with a melody, with a hook, with a guitar riff, and then you hope that other writer or writers are able to help you cohesively put that together. So it's a little bit different. It's not the easiest thing. So I always say that the inspiration is what makes the song, and a lot of times those songs that were written quickly are totally driven through inspiration, and that's why they land on paper so quickly.
Yeah, and I guess that would be more difficult to have to write like on demand or by appointment rather than when you're feeling something that you want to, and that's when you're wanting to write. But if you're, just trying to force it, sometimes maybe it's a little harder to produce the same quality song.
Yeah. And that all depends on the writer that you are too. I mean, a lot of people like to write with other people. Mm-hmm. I'm a guy who I like to write with others sometimes, but I write a lot on my own because I try to sit down when the inspiration hits and take that moment of opportunity to blow it up and make it, a song.
And then, what would you say is the hardest part of being a musician? Is it the being away from your family, like you were saying earlier? Is it something else from the musician standpoint? Is it a combination of things?
Yeah, once you get into a realm of where you're constantly on the go, no matter what you do as a passion, at some point it takes on a business interest and becomes business. And so having the right people in place is difficult sometimes to get that nucleus of people that you need, but you definitely need a team. You need an army, so to speak, of people. And I was raised by a very independent father who is a do-it-yourself man. I call him MacGyver because he can literally fix anything in any situation that I've ever been in that I've seen him working. And I've learned a lot of things from my dad through the years, but I think it also made me, I'm not afraid to go out there individually and lay it on the line as well, regardless of whether that's a show like I'm going to do tonight at Do-Si Do, or if it's a dinner show in someone's backyard, that I have that ability to come in and be able to break the ice and to be able to make people feel at home, and to be able to take that. But a great team is a necessary part of it to continue to grow. And this is not a 50-year-old man's game. This is a young man and a young woman's game. And so, I think you take those early years and the successes that you've had, and then you try to continue to come out with music and stay somewhat viable so that you can continue to do what you do.
Right.
It's difficult from a standpoint of being on the road all the time. I know that a lot of people think that it's glamorous to have a bus, like a 45-foot Prevost that you've got 10 other dudes on, but it's just really a tube, and it's a business, and it's not it's better than the van. Don't get me wrong, right? The van, but at the same time, the overhead of everything, it did make it where you constantly had to be gone and be busy. And I would say that's the most difficult part, especially once you start having a family, is to be gone all the time. You're missing some of the key elements of their lives, and you hope that you're present for enough of it that your wife stands beside you, and then you wake up one day and want to be like, hey, I'm here, and I'm not going to do this the same way, and I think that we've figured out a way to do that.
Yeah, well, and it seems to be working, for you. So, who are some of your biggest influences, maybe when you were starting out, as well as maybe some of your favorite artists right now on the scene or in the genre? So
I'm one of those guys that, like, all of my friends are older than me. I've always hung out with older people. I don't know why that's the case, but from a very early time, I always looked up to older people, and I always looked up to the fact that I could tell the future from what I see through my friends and what they're doing and what they're going through. And musically, I wouldn't say that was any different. Obviously, growing up in the era that I grew up in the 80s, mostly, we had radio, and that was your medium. So, the radio, you weren't able to just tap into any music like you're able to do so now. And so it's a much different playing field. But, growing up, my family all listened to country music. I mean, we were listening to Willie and Merle, and my grandmother loved, You know, like she loved the softer side. She loved stuff like Conway Twitty and Kenny Rogers and Floyd Kramer. And then, you know, I'd go down to my papa's where he was gambling with his buddies and they were listening to Johnny Paycheck. And then, you know, it was just kind of all over the place musically. My mother loved country music, but she also loved Elvis and she loved Lionel Richie and some of that. You know, so I was kind of introduced to all kinds of music during that time frame. And I always say that people say that I'm country because my roots are definitely in country. But the people that I always loved the songwriters. I've always been a fan of the songwriters. And so from those early days, if you would say, you know, somebody like John Denver or, you know, a Don Williams, even though Don didn't write all of the stuff that he put out, you know, that opened a lot of doors. And then as I became more in tune with like the Texas music scene, even back then,
right?
You know, you were introduced to the likes of Billy Joe Shaver or Robert Earl Keen, and you know those. The first time I saw Robert, like I was working in Tyler, and the boss that I had while I was going to school, the boss that I had said, "Hey man, there's a big party tonight downtown on the square in Tyler," and I said, "Oh, that's great, man." And he said, "It's a concert." And I said, "Who's playing?" And he said, "Robert Earl Keen." I was like, "I don't know him." And he said, "Well, you got to come down because he's amazing." And I did. I went down that night and listened to Robert and bought all the records he had and just kind of geeked out on that for a while. And then after that was Pat, that I really kind of was like, he was 94, 95, really starting to hit it hard. Remember the first time I was able to see him or meet him. And oh, man, there's so many great songwriters out there that are not household names. And that's the thing, is like your artists, like they get the notoriety, but there are a lot of writers out there that don't and should. I know that like a name like Lori McKenna right now. Lori is super successful. She's a great writer. I wrote a couple of songs with her on my self-titled record that came out in 2018. A song called They Need Each Other was our biggest. We put a video out for that. But she's one of the greatest writers of all time. She wrote Humble and Kind. Mm-hmm. She wrote that song.
Oh, she wrote.
She's written a ton of songs. But she's also a performer and goes out. She's a great writer. Then like Walt, I've already mentioned Walt. I think Walt is the greatest Texas troubadour, you know, one of the greatest out there right now who carries that flag and is really such a great lyricist, a poet. I cannot be around the man without feeling better. And I feel like most people definitely feel that same way. And then a guy like Daryl Scott. Daryl Scott wrote It's a Great Day to Be Alive, which Travis Tritt recorded. Yeah. And then also Corey recorded around the same time, Morrow. Mm-hmm. And he's another great writer that just blows my mind. John Randall. We've seen John around lately with Miranda and Jack doing the stuff that they're doing. But John is one of the best writing, playing guys I've ever been around in my life. And so a lot of times when you ask me that question, I'm going to promote guys and girls that are songwriters first, and that are maybe not your artists that you know and you hear every day on the radio. But my kids keep me up to date with, you know, my kids are 15 and 17, and so the artists who are, you know, like clicking right now, and obviously they're like huge, you know, fans of so many of the younger artists like a Parker McCollum, and it's been great to have that angle where, you know, I can call Parker and say, "Hey, can my kids take a picture with you tonight after the show?" You know, and that gives me, you know, like big brownie points with them, right? But gosh, there's so many great artists.
Tell him to come on our podcast.
Yeah,
yeah.
Right on.
We're working on getting him on. We were talking about his album the other day on here, and he commented on something. So I've been like tagging him every day on Twitter, like hashtag Parker on the pod.
Well, after this, tag him and say, "Hey, your friend Brandon Ryder highly recommends doing this," and see if they. I don't know that it'll get you any traction, but maybe it'll help.
Oh, thank you. Well, we had Rich O'Toole was our first Texas music guest.
Oh, fool!
I don't know if you know all about the his whole beans and chili debate.
Yeah.
So we ask everyone that comes on, do beans belong in chili?
No. They never have. He and I have had this conversation many times. I know it's an angle that he uses, and Rich is good at this, finding angles to garner publicity. And you know I'm right, Rich. And that one's no different. The whole beans and chili thing. I like 4th, 5th generation Texan. I grew up, a bowl of red is about a bowl of red, and it has nothing to do with beans. I don't know if you know this, but I love to cook, and I do a lot of different
dish?
cooking shows. And I'll tell you about these dinner shows when we get through with that. My favorite dish to cook, oh my gosh, man, I'm a Texan.
Your best thing that you make, I don't know.
Okay, so I'm a Texan. I love whole beef tenderloin. Get it 20 of your friends together, cook some whole beef tenderloin, medium rare in the middle, and then the ends are more for the people who like it more towards the medium. We'll do like a roasted garlic, heavy cream butter, mashed potato. We do these charred carrots that we roast, and we get some color to them. Whole carrots. We don't skin them. We don't do anything. And then we rub them in honey and salt, and kosher salt and black pepper. People go nuts over those carrots. And we do all these different salads and different things. But it's funny, man. Food and music go together so well.
Yeah.
And through the years, there are a couple of different groups of people that I've been able to meet through music that I wouldn't have. And one of those are chefs. I've met so many great chefs through the years, and have been able to utilize them for things like I'm putting on a dinner party, and I call my buddy Grady, who I'm like, what do I need to pair this with? But it's taught me a lot. And so through music, I've been able to do some shows at different restaurants where we've had 100 tickets sold, and we've done kind of like a meet and greet type thing.
Right.
Well, then when COVID hit, we were all out of work. And we were sitting at the house, and a couple of the things that I did, we all did the Facebook deal where we did some Facebook Live. I
remember that.
I cooked a whole hog on Facebook. I don't know if you remember that. We would come on every 3 hours. We started early in the morning. We kind of had this idea. Me and a buddy of mine that lives close to me, and we went and got a bunch of cinder blocks, and we made our own pit, and we got some merch racks from being on the road all those years, and we sandblasted them, scrubbed them down, and put them on some heat to get them ready, and we put the pig on there, and we tied it down, and we had it to where we could flip it with the merch racks. They were literally merch racks.
That's awesome.
So, long story short, we did stuff like that, and then the governor, when we could start, he said, you can start having get-togethers in your backyards of 20 or less, and this opened up the idea for the dinner shows. And so I called my manager in Nashville, and I don't think anybody really thought that this would take off and fly, but it's what happens is they get in touch with my agent, they hire me to do the show, I then get in touch with them, we set a menu of what we're going to have that night, I send them a grocery list. They have to do the hard work there. I show up at their house, say we're going to do a Saturday night dinner show. If they want to serve at 7, I show up at 4 o'clock. We throw out this amazing meal for them and 20 of their friends. And then when that's done, I break out the guitar and we do a concert as well.
That's awesome.
It just showcases my love for both angles, the food and the music. My next show is next Saturday night. It would be my 87th dinner show that I've done in the last 2 years. It's become a big part of what I do.
Well, that's cool. You get to take two of your passions there. Like you said, you like the cooking, and then get to go play a show too. And that's probably cool for fans of you and stuff to get to see you in a more up and close, intimate setting there in the backyard.
And that's cool. Exactly what it is. It's an intimate setting where people can get up close and personal. I think a lot of people in the beginning think that the food part is going to be kind of like, we'll see if he can cook or not. Let's see what he does. And then when they get there and figure out what's on the menu, and we throw out this amazing meal, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, he can cook!" And then you break out the guitar and you just sit down, with everybody. Yeah. There's no PA. Right. Another great part of that is that a lot of times they have stories to tell me.
Yeah. About
how they first met, or they were on their first date at my concert, or that freeze frame time. Means something to them, or that they have a kid named Ryder, or whatever. It's a really cool coming together
Yeah.
type deal, and I've enjoyed them thoroughly. And I hope to, with that, I hope to create a pilot for a show that we want to do with it, and do it at some bigger places. I've done it at some wineries and some restaurants, but try to continue to morph the music and the food.
Wineries and breweries, you could go in there if they don't serve food there, and then maybe do something like that there too, and then it's a bigger area that might already have a stage or something too.
We just did this 3 weeks ago at a place called Axis Winery in the town that I live in now, Salado. I should say the village that I live in. I actually live out of town, but things like that where we'll sell like 75 to 100 tickets.
Right.
We kind of pick a menu that we think is going to really go off. The last menu that we did for that, it's at a winery. It's hot outside. In fact, that day it was like 105. It was brutal. Mm-hmm. But we had paella. We had like this white fish with a lemon garlic sauce. We had all these different, like we call coastal ideas, and we'll change the ideas up every single time that we do it.
So mix it up and keep it fresh.
It's a blast.
Yeah. And
people love food, and people love music. So
everybody likes to eat. Everybody likes music. So
it's a great marriage.
So I want to move. What's the craziest thing you've seen or experienced while you've been out on the road? Playing. You ever see anything crazy at a show or just on the way to a show? I don't know.
Oh yeah. I mean. Yeah, gosh, trying to figure. My brain is right now dumping, and it's going like, okay, which one of these? Which one of these are we going to tell? There was this one Saturday. We were, the comedian. His name is escaping me right now. He was the Watermelon Man. He recently passed. It hasn't been long ago, like in the last couple of years. He was a comedian that got to be known, and I'll spit his name out here in a minute because it's right on the tip of my tongue. But he was known for smashing watermelons.
Oh.
Kind of like Ross Chastain is now in NASCAR. But gosh, I can't think of his name, and I hate that. I'm so sorry for those of you listening and being like, well, this makes no sense. But I'll think of it here in a minute, or we'll Google it.
Or Google it, and we'll have it in the description.
So we were playing at the Texas Music Theater in the Texas Theater in Waxahachie. And it's early in the morning. We're loading in at like 11 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's just waking up, getting coffee, getting going, and while we're sitting there and everything's getting loaded in, this gentleman walks in, and we were all shocked to see him because we recognized him and knew who he was, even though I can't remember his name right now. But it was like, what are you doing here? Hey, man, talk to us. And he said, well, I happened to be passing by, and I saw your big, nice bus out front. And I thought, if they can afford you, I bet they can afford me. And so, gosh, I'm just because I'm trying to think of it. But, you see anything and everything out there on the road. You meet people that are really, really great to you, and you meet people who you think are some of your heroes, and I won't mention any of their names, but that you find out that they're kind of jerks and that you don't really want to know them. But, some of the other stories that are really great we're getting the chance to open up for, like, Willie. I've done that a few times. Got to open up for Merle Haggard out in Lubbock at the amphitheater. My grandmother thought that she had died and gone to heaven, and she thought that I was the next big superstar because I was opening up for Merle in that situation. And then Charlie Daniels, I got to be friends with him, and Charlie was probably one of the greatest that I've ever been around. And what a fierce, beautiful man that he was, his passion for what he did. And the last show that we did with him was it was a festival. It was in Temple, Texas, and we hung out in the green room, and he signed autographs for all of us and took pictures with us, and And then we got to go sit on the edge of the stage and watch Charlie Daniels and his band kill it like it was 1975.
Yeah.
And they were amazing. And so just all of those guys that I grew up listening to on the radio that we were able to actually rub elbows with and open up with, those were some phenomenal
Get to meet your heroes.
times. Yes, absolutely.
It's pretty cool. It's like a sign that you made it, when you're out there, like, it's almost like, wow, these are my peers now, like,
You never think of it that way.
No,
but,
but.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It is wild. So we're going to look this up while you ask this next question. Watermelon.
Yeah, let's see if we can.
Watermelon. What was he was
a comedian? Watermelon smashing comedian?
I don't think I typed that in there right. Gallagher.
Okay.
Gallagher. Do you remember him?
I'm not sure.
You weren't born until like the end of the 90s, so it does make sense that you don't remember who Gallagher was. But for those of you who do, he was a very funny man, and you never knew what he was going to say or do, and it was a wild story.
Just that he happened to be there.
Yep.
But do you have a favorite song that you have written? Of yours, like out of all of them, one that reigns as your favorite?
Yeah, for sure. My 17-year-old son, his name is Dusty, and I wrote a song called Freeze Frame Time for him before he was born. We've talked about how when I decided to kind of chase this dream that I was already married. Right. And Kel and I, we got married very young. We were 21 and 19. We were high school sweethearts. And we decided at that age that we were going to get married, but that we were going to wait a while to have kids. And I tell people that we waited just long enough where the grandparents quit asking if we were ever going to have grandkids. And so that was part of it, the being able to wait those years. And I would never be doing music had we not done that. I probably would have never made the move to Austin, Texas, had we already started having children. So it completely changed the trajectory and direction of what we were doing. And so, that was a big part of it. But then when we did decide to start having kids, I had watched all my friends have kids. And I knew that it was something that I had never experienced and was not going to experience until I had a child. And so taking that and using their eyes and what they taught me before my son was here, I was able to write a song that has been one of my top 2 or 3 songs that I've ever written, and it is about my son. Okay. So it is the grandest thing to be able to write a song about your kids, especially from that standpoint, and then watch as they age and they get to the point where now they're young adults themselves. We're talking about what colleges they want to go to, and so it's a wild thing. But Freeze Frame Time was really the song that when I wrote it, I knew that I had become a good songwriter.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's my favorite one.
Thank you.
But
it's one of those universal songs.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're a child or whether you're 85 years old. It resonates.
Well, yeah, and it can mean something different to everyone. Like, you wrote it for your son, but it could mean, if you love someone, or if like you said, someone's old and they're about to pass. I mean, I don't know. It can mean something, a lot of different things, I think, to a lot of different people.
And that's why it's universal.
Yeah.
It means something about your spouse or your children or your grandparents or whatever. And so that song is probably, it's got to be up there as the best. And I love to sing it. And I'll sing it tonight and every night I'm on stage.
Yeah, got to. It's a really powerful song, honestly, too. Just the way that everything about it.
Thank you.
What about your favorite live concert that you've ever gone to see? Maybe one you weren't playing in, but just your favorite concert you've ever seen.
Well, this might cause a little bit of a ruckus with everything that's been going on lately, but I think one of the first concerts that really, really blew me away was going to watch Garth Brooks at what then was Texas Stadium, when the Cowboys were in Mesquite. This would have been in the 90s. We had a friend who asked us if we wanted to go. There was, I don't remember how many, but at least 15 of us.
Right.
And she was able to get on and get tickets to the event. And we were in the nosebleed section.
Yeah.
Of course, way up in the top.
Well, if
of
you're
the
going to get
stadium.
15 tickets together to
Yeah.
Garth Brooks.
Yeah. So we're sitting there, and I'm on the end of the row. And I mean, like, we're way, I'm talking,
Right on,
I mean,
like,
we're
way up
really
there.
up there. And this lady comes to me, and she has a badge on, and she says, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm with Garth Brooks Entertainment, and how would you like to sit on the front row of the Garth Brooks concert tonight?" And I looked at my friends and my wife, and I looked at her, and I said, "What's the catch?" And she said, "There is no catch. Garth has picked out certain seats in the stadium that are going to be blinded by cameras and stuff, and so if you're ready to go." And I said, "But there's like 15 of us." And she said, "Doesn't matter. Grab belt loop to belt loop. You grab mine, and we're going to snake our way down there." When we did, when we stopped and turned around to the stage, we were front and center of the concert. That was, I mean, there was rain, there was fire, there was explosion. Garth was flying over the stadium. I'm serious. He was flying from one end to the stadium. You know, like, it was insane. And I had never been to a concert like that.
Right.
And so to be able to turn around and stand from a stage vantage point and look at 60,000 people in a place where the Dallas Cowboys plays, it completely changed my whole world and made me think, you know, maybe I would like to do this one day. But think, at that time, I didn't even play the guitar.
Right.
That was around the corner. But I think still that concert was a part that made me.
So that's one of the many things that kind of maybe made you start thinking, like, you know.
Yeah, and then a couple of friends at a keg party playing the guitar.
Yeah.
It just came full circle. Wow.
But what about you? What's the coolest venue you've ever played?
Well, I don't think that you can play in the Texas music scene and not talk about the Green Halls,
right,
or not talk about the Billy Bobs.
Right.
But there's so many great dance halls, and those are still my favorite. Like Copeland Dance Hall, Schrader Hall. We're playing Freiburg Hall coming up this weekend. I love the dance halls, and they're still out there, and they're still viable. And it's up to us, and it's up to y'all, the younger generations, to continue to go out there and support these venues, to continue to support live music, because that's truly where it is. I think a lot of people don't get it, and maybe it's changing somewhat now. But for us, like, there wasn't another place on the planet, there wasn't another place in the lower 48 that you could basically create your own music and go out and purvey that music and sing that music and try to build a fan base that way. And Texas has always been unique in that. Obviously, we did a live at Billy Bob's 10 years ago, and that was a great experience to be able to do that.
The place is massive.
It is, and to
just
be able
the whole,
to
like a
we
complex.
had like a 15-piece band that night.
Yeah,
I had Brandon Anthony playing fiddle. I had Walt playing guitar and singing. I had Radney Foster come in and sing on a couple of songs there with us. We had backup singers, and we had everything, and that was basically a 2-day ordeal. You come in on Friday, you get everything set, you go through some rehearsals, wake up Saturday, do kind of the same thing, and then record that night. And it's truly it's a whirlwind. I mean, it all goes by so fast. But I had all of my family there. We probably had 200 people there that were with us. So that was a pretty incredible night. And to be one of, less than, at that time, 80 artists that had ever done that, and in the likes of the greatest names in country music who did, from Willie to Tanya Tucker to Charlie Pride to you name it, to Ragweed.
Yeah, man.
We all did them, and that was a great opportunity.
And then was there a certain time? I mean, they still record the live albums there a lot, but was there it seems like around the same year there was a lot of people that recorded live albums at Billy Bob's. I noticed it's like a popular place to.
It was an emphasis during that time with the management there to do as many of these that they could with the Texas artists who were coming up and breaking the scene and doing those things. And, you know, still to this day, I mean, I think Pat plays at least twice a year there, and you know, still sells it out. You know, I mean, it's such a trademark of the whole Texas music scene in general.
Yeah.
So I love it.
What would you say is your ultimate goal for your career as a musician as you continue to play music?
I always say I've been doing this a long time not to be that popular, and it seems to be working out just fine. You know, we've had so much success through the years. We've been able to be on so many different stages with so many different artists, and to open or to headline events all over the U.S. and then the world as well. Those things again are memories that would have never been created had it not been for music. So to say at this point of my career, after 11 records and you know, kind of dabbling in the whole food side of everything now too, is I think that the part is longevity. You know, you want to create a sense or a source to where you can continue to do it, but understanding that you're going to be doing it at a different level, and you can kind of bring some of those other passions in, like food or whatever your passions are, to music, and kind of play in that arena as well. And so, you know, I was on the way down here today. I had a 30-minute conversation with a great friend of mine who has started his own brand of charcoal and offset smokers. And I've watched this man put his heart and soul into these efforts, and I see what he's doing now really come to fruition. And so I think that's the same thing, you know, like when you're a young man and you've got to have that passion and that drive to go out there to do this, because you don't necessarily get into it, again, for the money. You get into it because you have a passion, and God has given you this ability. And I think that watching other people do that, I would kind of like to have that opportunity to have a passion about not only my music, but, you know, things in that world too. So my buddy that I'm talking about owns a company called Texas Original Charcoal. He has a couple of different lines of charcoal, and then they also have a pit line, Texas Original Pit. And the doors that he's opened have all been through his hard work and dedication to his craft. And so, man, there's a lot of great people out there that can cook. I mean, they can cook their butts off, and I've learned so much from them. And that's another, you know, like you get your hands on one of these chefs, one of these guys that they have a name, and then you hear their story about how long it's taken them to get to the point where they're at, and you learn that. But I definitely want to be in that food, I'm even going to say it, Food Network world. I mean, I do. I hope someday that we can create a show that involves music and kind of take this from the whole beginning of it to where it's at now.
I could see something, you know, like definitely you could do Texas music and cooking on a show, because there's so many different, like you could do barbecue, you could do chili to start, you know, and then because those are definitely main Texas dishes, you know, it kind of all, it works together. It really does, you know.
It does. But then also, you know, when you include those foods, there you don't realize how many artists, how many singer-songwriters are also great foodies. Yeah. They can cook. Like, let's just say, for instance, Pat Green.
Right.
I've been to Pat's house and written with him, and that night he took me to the grocery store, and he got a rack of lamb, and we got wine, and he made this whole amazing meal, and I was like, damn, this guy can cook and sing too. And that, you know, Radney Foster, every time we go up to Nashville and stayed with him, I mean, gosh, that man can cook too. So there are a lot of artists who, you know, if you bring into this thing, they have a passion for it. And not only do they have a passion for it, but they're damn good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, that it all goes together.
It does.
So I have to ask, what's your opinion on being categorized, you know, as that Texas music or red dirt scene, and what's your opinion of the whole genre today? What direction do you think it's headed in, or what do you think of it today? I know it's kind of changed a little bit.
I know that it was a subject of consternation for sure in, you know, 15, 20 years ago, because everyone was so like, this is our music. This is ours. This is Texas music. This is red dirt music. This is not what's on the radio in Nashville. This is, you know, but I've seen that stance soften as it should over the years.
Yeah.
The truth is that a lot of us artists who were in the scene at that time, we're not like like country artists in the mainstream sort of value. But we are artists who have been influenced by all these other types of music, and then we take that and make it our own. So who are we to say what Texas music is? Because everything that we put out there is really just kind of a smorgasbord of all the influences that we had, right, at the time. And so I've always been a lover of all music, and still to this day, like I take great pride that my 17-year-old son loves Metallica. Because I grew up on Metallica as well, and I love their music to this day. And it's just being versatile, and I think that the scene today has just taken that to the next level and the next level. And yes, it's hard to turn on radio sometimes and tell what is country, because country is different now. But it's always going to change. So I don't want to ever stick, that knife in and say, you know what, that's not country music, or that is. Now, don't get me wrong, the whole like rapping thing with country music I thought was, it was a little beyond me. And I do tend to love and follow the songwriter, those who, and I'm not just there to tap my foot and to hear a beat. I want to hear a story, and I want to hear
something that has more meaning, a little bit more
what has meaning to them. And so that's the important part of being a songwriter yourself.
Yeah, I would have to agree with all that. I mean, you don't want to completely say, one whole scene this or one whole scene that. But at the same time, a lot of the guys that come out of Texas in this red dirt scene, that some of their music, they tend to, more of them tend to be songwriters.
Yeah,
like true songwriters, and so a lot of their stuff does have more meaning sometimes, and I think that's why people resonate with the scene so much.
You definitely have a plethora of songwriters in the great state of Texas who can keep you occupied for the rest of your life. They truly can, because they're that good. And a lot of them before us, too. But this is, for whatever, reason, Texas is just cranks them out one after another. And it's a blessing to have that, because at this point in life, I don't always have to get on a plane and fly somewhere to go write with someone. I can, I'm pretty centrally located. I can call one of my buddies and say, hey man, if you come over on Monday about 10 o'clock in the morning, I'll cook you lunch, we'll write a song, and we'll hang out at the creek. Yeah. And they're like, I'm in, let's do that. And so I think that's the blessing of having a great amount of great songwriters here as well.
Yeah, man. And do you got any new music or anything that you're working on that you can tell us about? Any announcements for shows or anything?
Sure, man. So, last year it was in the summertime that we came out with a song called Under the Lights on Friday night.
Yeah.
This song was written by a friend of mine that I happened to meet on a trip last year. We were celebrating the life of a good friend of mine who had passed away. We were spreading his ashes. Out on a ranch, and I happened to meet this gentleman, and we became friends. And he sent me a bunch of songs that he had either written or co-written, or I decided to listen to him one day when I was working out, and I've had this song. My son's going to be a senior this year. Of course, he would have been a junior last year. He's been on varsity since he was a sophomore, moved up at the end of his freshman year. And I mean, obviously eats, sleeps, and breathes football. There's another group of people I talked to you about, meeting chefs, the other group that I've met through the years that I've become dear friends with, are coaches, man. They just have a great regard for our coaches and what they do for our youth, both men and women, the impact that they leave on our children long after they leave the game. As obviously we know, most kids are not going to play professionally. Right. But I think that's a great part of that. And so I called my friend, and he goes by Bear. Mm-hmm. And I said, Bear, dude, I heard this song, and if you don't mind, I would love to maybe rewrite a portion of it with your blessing and you involved, and record this. And so we did, and it was a great success last year. It's the first song off a new record that we're working on. I don't have a release date for it. And the reason that I don't is because and I know that you're young, but in 2 years we will be on the 20th anniversary of Conviction coming out, and so we're going to do a whole big release, a re-release of Conviction. We will probably re-record songs like Backroads and Freeze Frame Time. We're going to have a whole new record that those will be on, and so my idea between now and then is that we will continue to crank out a single, probably 2 a year in advance of that, and have that going. I'll continue to not play Fridays in the fall and be at both. Dusty plays football. My daughter Mahala is a volleyball player. She's pretty good at that, and so the thing is just to be present and to be with my kids, but to continue to promote and do what I love to do, and hopefully people will keep booking us. We've got we don't play as many bars as we used to. We play fairs and festivals and private events and corporate events and backyard dinner parties, and just always looking to continue to expand that. I've done these dinner shows as far as like Phoenix and Oklahoma and Louisiana, and obviously Texas is a big backyard, and Colorado, and so it's given me the opportunity to cook in some different places and sing. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, I really like that idea of the dinner shows. I think that's pretty neat. I've never really seen anything like that. I've seen, people will have dinners and like where the artist will come and perform, but for you to actually cook the dinner too, I don't know. That gives you extra points, right?
It's unique.
It's cool,
and no one else is doing it. I think Rich is definitely getting in on the food side of this.
I saw he's been hanging out with the what's his name, who has Trill Burgers down in Houston.
Yeah, I can't think of his name right now either. But definitely, and I think that it's a world.
Lund B, I think it is. Sorry.
Zach Bryan, he does a lot of food events.
He's on fire right now.
Zach Brown is who I'm thinking of. Did I say the right name?
Zach Bryan. I was going to say he's been on fire lately,
too. No doubt. I think the more that we infuse food and music, I think that we can have success there. And so that's really my focus right now, is continue to make music, continue to push these different food angles, and see if I can end up, with a few products at your local HEB.
that would be awesome. What's it gonna be called? What's your product gonna be called?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean,
there's Breaky Bomb salsa out there. Breckman's got a salsa. I mean,
it's got to be something that's associated with B Riders. B Rider. I always, and I've been asked. A lot of people have asked me to get into the restaurant world, but it's not somewhere that I feel like I can be. And I know that the commitment that takes. But if I ever had a place, like if I ever had a restaurant, I would like to call it something like a Ryder's Pick-and Parlor.
Oh, there you go.
So I would like to have a small establishment that only caters to acoustic acts.
Nice. We're not going to have music guests there too. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you bring, try to have music, 4 or 5 nights a week, from local to people that are routing through, and do some and make the food high end level as well, but not anything I'm talking. We're still going to have chicken fried steak, and you're still going to have chili without beans in it. But
be a burger there somewhere too.
You can't go wrong with burgers.
No, you can't. Like that's. You ever go to a restaurant, and you're like, I don't know about this menu. There's always a burger there.
I'll give you a great story. If we still got time, this last week we spent we spent several days up in Colorado, which was fantastic because it was so cool. 40s at nighttime and daytimes mostly in the 60s. And we ended up going by this place called Bud's Bar. This is outside of Denver, Southwest. And Bud's looks like a place that has been there for a long time. And so I told my wife after about the 3rd time, I said, we've got to stop in there. I just know there's a story to this. And so we did one afternoon. We stopped in Bud's and went in and sat at the end of the counter, ordered a couple of beers. They are known for their burgers.
Oh.
Listen to this. They only serve burgers. They've been open since 1948. Oof. The menu is either a single burger or a double beef burger. They don't do fries.
Oh.
They only do chips. You can have your choice of drink to go with it. And then the burgers, which is crazy, are they steam them.
Interesting.
And I had never heard of a steamed burger.
I guess like you make on the stovetop kind of?
They would have to steam them through some type of apparatus like that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they were, got American cheese and that that bun that is quintessential to making the good burger, and known as one of the top burger places in all of Colorado.
Was it good?
Oh my gosh, it was over the top fantastic.
Yeah.
It really was everything that they said that it was. Not only that, but I got to meet Paulie there, who's the manager, and he kind of gave me the lowdown of the history. There's a gentleman there that Mr. Hire is his name, and he was kind of the screw up of that area. He's at like 82 now, and he had a couple of books, and I was able to get his books, and I read one of them on the flight home. And I'm just telling you, man, if you ever get a chance to go through a place like that, you never know. Those are always the places that has the best food.
Those old looking like burger joints or anything,
they're just
you pass
like,
by, you're like, oh, this has got to be good. If it's been here this long, it's got to be good.
Take it or leave it, and it was fantastic. So Bud's Bar, Sedalia, Colorado, if you're ever through.
I'll have to tell my wife's family. They're up there in Colorado actually this weekend. They're in the Denver area, so maybe I'll tell them, hey, you got to go here.
Go to Bud's
Brandon
Bar.
Rhyder says there's a good burger there.
I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, man. I'm always looking for good burgers.
And it's about 40 degrees.
But I like me a good burger.
And it's about 40 degrees cooler right now. So
yeah, the weather's a little bit better up there.
It was fantastic.
It's hot right now down here. But I'll end with just a couple more questions here. So you said cooking. You got any other hobbies besides music and cooking? I mean, well, I guess music's not really a hobby now. It's your career, and your passion.
I try to live out all my hobbies,
Yeah.
And you know how hobbies can be expensive, so I have to pick and choose. I'm not a good golfer. I can whack it around on the golf course, but I'm not good at that.
Swing hard and hope for the best.
Yeah, I know that a lot of business is done there, but really, truly, like food and music is really my passion, my two passions, and where I have definitely focused on. And not even, it was through COVID that whole thing was born. So you never know what can come from crazy times in your life.
Making the best of a tough situation, where it's harder to get the big gatherings together. So you're like, well, how can we still make this work? And
yeah, well, we all did different things from the Facebook Live stuff, which was mostly free, but people had, that's really when the whole Venmo and Cash Apps and all those things started.
All the artists were streaming stuff, and then they'd put their Venmo stuff up there, and I'm like, that's a good idea, and it's entertainment. I would watch a lot of them, and, send a few dollars here and there, and it was fun.
I wrote lyric sheets. That's another thing that I did.
Yeah.
Quite a few of us did. I wrote... I think during that time I probably wrote somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 lyric sheets for people.
Well, that's cool. I mean, stuff like that would look good,
Yeah. On the wall. All right, we'll get freeze frame time over to you. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right. I got your address. I think I can make that happen.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. There.
Yeah, but obviously sports in general. I'm a sports nut.
Yes,
I love sports. I played baseball growing up.
Okay.
I wasn't good enough to look at next level with that. At about 16, I decided I'd rather chase girls than chase that dream. And
right.
And then, football has always been a passion. Again, I wasn't big enough to really get into that, when I was in high school. But, being able to watch my son play and my daughter play volleyball, a sport that I didn't know really anything about.
Yeah. I'm sure you've learned a lot now, though, huh?
It's been a growth. It's been a lot of fun. I think that when we talk about like coaches and being able to be close to coaches again to see the impact that they have on our children, I think that's just such a super huge deal. I've been able to work with different coaches on different projects. When the Brock Eagles were getting started up, my nephew was going there, and they were starting a football program from scratch, and they asked me to do some fundraisers and stuff like that, and they did a ton and raised money and basically started a football program without the blessing of a school board and paid for it themselves the first couple of years until they couldn't deny it, things like that. The coaches that you meet, Chad Worrell was there, and then he was recently at he was down in El Campo and then left there, and now he's up in Burleson. But, meeting a lot of these coaches gets you the chance to see a lot of the younger players that are coming up and what they're doing. Obviously, the Aggies have pretty good running back coming out of the
Yeah.
El Campo area.
Yeah.
Right now. So Ruben.
Ruben.
Yeah. Ruben, I got to watch him in a
5'9".
high school football game a couple of years ago at Baylor. They were playing there in the playoffs, and
Right.
we were able to be on the sidelines. And Ruben Owens, when he came around the corner, man, and my son was with me, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I went, "Wow!" I mean, you want to talk about an all-out athlete, fast.
Yeah.
And man, it was pretty cool. And then we got to scrimmage against them last year, and watch Reuben up close and personal. So congrats to the Aggies for that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this season for Aggie football. There's nowhere to go but up from last year. So hopefully, we'll knock on wood here. But
well, the game has changed so much. I mean, I love sports. I can talk football. I love the fact that I'm in the mode of talking, and my kid's doing like recruiting, and we're going to different camps and getting to meet some of these different coaches. So that's a lot of fun. It's interesting to see, where college is at right now with the portal, and I think that's kind of hurting some high school recruiting because it kind of gets pushed to the last part of it all because you're trying to see who's in the portal and where they're coming from and who's leaving you and going where. And
it's nuts.
It is nuts.
World now.
It's going to be interesting to see what this does for like my kids and. And trying to get placement into a college program. But I think it's beautiful because, if you have the heart, if you'll run through a brick wall for these coaches, they'll give you the opportunity. And you got to be disciplined, and you got to be able to have the work ethic and the tenacity and the stick-to-itiveness to be able to play at the next level. And so to watch my kids have that interest and then to be turning it into a reality is cool. Amazing.
Yeah.
It truly is.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, man, for coming by today and for taking time out of your day to come, do another interview.
Thank you. I appreciate the
Road.
opportunity.
And my wife, she's not here right now, but I'm going to talk to her when she gets back, and I think we're going to try to head over to see your show tonight over there at Do-Si-Do.
Yeah, the big house. The big
barn, right?
That's
the big barn over there in the Woodlands.
It's such a great place to play. They have great food as well. Steve has had on that bar for many years, and they moved that whole thing Do-Si-Do from the Northeast. It was a cabin that they found up there, and they marked every individual log, and it's right there on the interstate. And when you get there, you're like, what is this building doing here? Because it doesn't belong there. But they'll have a great menu.
So I didn't know they moved it. I've been there like once. They moved it. It's because I was reading about it online though or something. It's like apparently one of the best acoustic They have everything meticulously designed in there for the acoustics to sound.
And then on top of that, they're getting every artist who is a songwriter to come through there. And
I noticed that.
They have a great lineup, and then so that's great. And then we were talking about the dance halls Friday night. The whole band will be over at Freiburg Hall, in Freiburg, Texas. And that is another cool little spot on the road map and a place that you should go. And it's fun for me when I get to get the boys together and have the full band events as well, because I love them so much and they're so good at what they do, and I'm very blessed to have them on my team. So it takes an army. And we got a good one.
It's got a good team behind you. That support system, from your family and your band and everybody's behind you. We here at the Red Dirt Aggie Show, we're behind you too.
Yeah, I need it. Every bit of it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for stopping by. This is Brandon Rhyder. I'm Brian, the Red Dirt Aggie, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.
Gig 'em and God bless.